India, as it continues with its battle against coronavirus, finds that the active cases have surged past 100. With 39 active cases, Maharashtra remains the worst hit. I start tonight's bulletin by giving you a sense of what's happening today across the country.
Deserted airports, over 100 confirmed cases, nearly 7 states under various stages of lockdown. The coronavirus pandemic does not seem to be subsiding anytime soon. Maharashtra has the highest number of cases, followed by Kerala and then Haryana. Odisha reported its first case on Monday. A 33-year-old who just returned from Italy has tested positive. In Delhi, any social gathering of over 50 people has been banned. All gyms, nightclubs and spas will remain closed till the end of this month. The ban will also cover protests.
सभी के ऊपर ये लागू है, तो सभी को चाहे वो प्रोटेस्ट हो चाहे कोई भी हो उसको उसके ऊपर ये लागू होगा, ये ऑर्डर लागू होगा. और मॉल्स के बारे में अगर ज़रूरत हुई तो 1-2 दिन में उसके ऊपर भी निर्णय लेंगे हम लोग.
There are, however, questions over the efficiency of the social distancing drive. In Karnataka, where shopping malls are shut and gatherings of more than 100 people are banned, around 2,000 people attended the wedding of a BJP MLC Mahantesh Kavadgimat. Among them, Chief Minister Yediyurappa himself.
At this time, for the chief executive of the state to behave so irresponsibly is something which is incomprehensible and something which befuddles the state. So I would request the chief minister, the honorable prime minister, to take this entire situation seriously.
The good news, one of the first confirmed cases, a Delhi resident who had held a birthday party for his child, has now recovered fully and has been discharged from hospital.
बहुत बढ़िया स्टाफ, बहुत बढ़िया डॉक्टर. अगर सिम्टम लगता है, गवर्नमेंट ने कॉल सेंटर्स के नंबर दिए हुए हैं, उन कॉल सेंटर्स में फोन करें, हेल्पलाइन नंबर्स जो दिए हुए हैं उनमें कॉल करें और अपने आप को चेक कराएं. इसमें डरने की कोई बात नहीं है. जितनी जल्दी दिखाएंगे उतनी जल्दी ठीक होंगे.
The experience of Europe, where infections spiraled in a matter of days, could mean India's battle against coronavirus may have only begun. More restrictions could come into play very soon. Bureau Report, India Today.
And as we reported earlier, India has now shut its doors further to global tourists. The lists of countries now for mandatory quarantine has been expanded from 7 to 11. Flyers coming in from UAE, Qatar, Oman, Kuwait will have to undergo a 14-day isolation. No airline can carry passengers from the EU countries, Turkey, UK to India. Both measures will be in force until 31st March. This is in addition to the mandatory screening that's going on at the airports. Okay, good point on which to join my first guest tonight. The newsmaker that I have is a member of the group of ministers in the Narendra Modi government. He's also Minister for Civil Aviation. I'm joined at the moment by Hardeep Singh Puri, Minister for Civil Aviation, member of the group of ministers on coronavirus. Appreciate your joining us, Mr. Puri. As Minister, there have been doubts expressed, sir, from time to time about how effective airport screening procedures are. Today, you've decided that many more countries now will be stopped in India from flying in to the country. Are you fully satisfied with the kind of screening procedures that are going on at the airport, because concerns have been expressed?
Rajdeep, let me place before you the facts. We have 30 airports which receive international passengers. These measures, the number of passengers coming into these 30 airports was in excess of 70,000 a day. Now we have arrangements in place for screening at all of these 30 airports. Now you've asked me whether I'm satisfied. I can tell you I'm satisfied that the arrangements are in place. What we need to continue to do is to monitor the situation as it evolves. We were off the mark fairly early. The coronavirus hit the news, hit the public domain sometimes towards the end of December. The WHO issued the first advisory sometime towards the end of January. We started taking measures on 17th January. Initially, it was screening from the 12 most affected countries. We had to expand that because of the travel history of several passengers to make it universal screening for all passengers from all countries. Now, Rajdeep, screening is just a preliminary step. The first screening is, you are checked through thermal screening whether a person is running temperature. Now, we would like to be 100% sure that everybody is cooperating fully. I've known of cases, I've read about them, I don't know whether they're true or not. Some people actually think it's a good idea taking paracetamol tablets before you come through a thermal screener, not realizing it's counterproductive. Well, we have screened, these are figures I'm using of yesterday,
right,
the day before. The figure today is probably much higher. Something like 12 to 13 lakh passengers have been screened so far coming into these 30 airports. We have been able to send about 3,225, again this is yesterday's figure, for further checks. Now, the screenings are serving a purpose. So far, because of the effectiveness of measures at the point of entry, and I don't mean airports alone, I mean the seaports, I mean the land boundaries, because of these measures in place at the point of entry, I think we have been able to insulate ourselves into, so far, a category 2 case, where the infections and the transmission is due to travel. Now, we have to ensure that we don't go into category 3, which is the community transmission scenario. And if you go there, we also have to make sure that we go there as late as possible.
No, I take your point, Mr. Minister, that there is thermal screening going on at all airports in the country. But one concern is that at landing at international airports, there is still often a queue that moves slowly. The amount of time spent in that queue is such that you will get into close quarters with people, and this can lead to increased exposure to a possible infection. Is that a concern for you?
First of all, Rajdeep, I must respectfully submit to you and through you to your viewers that this is just not true of Indian airports. The average time that we are taking, look, the two biggest entry points are Delhi, which has 70 million passengers a year, and Mumbai, which has 55 million passengers a year. In these two entry points, the time taken from the time you get out of the aircraft door and you clear, it's 8 to 10 to 20 to 30 minutes maximum. Contrast that with the kind of 6-hour queues and chaos at certain airports, I don't want to name them, in the more industrially advanced countries of the world. So this was a concern earlier, but we were very quick off the mark. To begin with, we segregated passengers as a preventive measure coming in from the 12 most segregated countries. There the aircraft comes into a different bay altogether. So all the people who are coming in from, let's say, in a more seriously affected country have a completely different procedures, and they are checked as soon as they leave outside the aircraft. Their forms are given to them whilst they're inside the aircraft, and I have personally examined all 30 airports through Airports Authority, airport operators, everyone, including Hyderabad, where I was yesterday, day before yesterday. We've reviewed the arrangement. So these long queues and contagion there is not my main concern.
But Mr. Puri, the pattern of the flow of corona in the first phase in the country showed that 39 of the first 50 corona positive passengers came from Italy, China, Iran. They could have potentially been stopped at the airport if the screening processes perhaps had captured the symptoms. Now, some of them may have missed the screening, or the symptoms showed up much later after they had traveled into the country. To that extent, is the airport screening still of limited effect?
Well, the first issue is, and this is not something which is directly related to screening, a patient may be carrying the virus, which may be incubating and not show any symptom. So that's a real possibility. But the advantage of screening at the point of entry is that the more obvious cases you could do that. Look, Rajdeep, when the total number was half the present amount, there were 17 out of a tourist party of 16 which came from Italy. Look, what has happened is that in some cases, Italy, Iran, South Korea, these were the three cases. where we were off the mark to do the screening. But some people came in and there's a lot of tourist traffic. Look, you've got to get behavioral change. I still see in the group of ministers meeting this morning, one of the statistics which really surprised me is Indian citizens are still traveling to places like Italy. Now, North Italy, Milan, for instance, is a very badly affected area where the normal health, public health system is conspicuous by its absence. So that's a different challenge. But if you ask me, am I satisfied? My answer is yes. For the moment, we are on top of the situation. We are able to screen every incoming passenger, but we are going much further. Now we've got protocols in place. If you're coming in from some countries, we will have to quarantine you for 14 days compulsorily. Now, what shape and form that quarantine takes is what the system is working on.
No, but it's precisely that word you used of quarantine, that you're quarantining patients coming from certain countries mandatorily for 14 days. Now, we're also getting images on social media of the quarantine centers where people are being sent from the airport, and it is being suggested that the hygiene here is of substandard quality. Your response?
I am, social media, with due respects to my friends on social media, it's a question of picking up. When we check the facts, I mean, two cases on which we spent a long time on social media was this case in Chennai when somebody reported that he came in without a check, and then there's another lady from your profession who claimed that she had come through T3 in Delhi. In the case of the first, we discovered that social media or message to us was, we discovered that person came in before 12 hours before the screening started, very early in the process. The second lady came in, we took 15 hours, we had to locate the video footage. She came through the thermal scanner, and the picture, she admitted as much. She said, but I wasn't questioned by a doctor. Let's leave that aside.
So are you saying that the quarantine center hygiene, as you see it, is of the prescribed level? Are you satisfied that it is actually of the prescribed level?
First of all, let me, in the interest of full disclosure, saying that as Minister for Civil Aviation, it's not my responsibility to comment on what the quality of quarantine in a place X or Y is, but my colleague Dr. Harshvardhan is monitoring it, the Health Ministry, entire Council of Medical Education, I am satisfied. If there are one or two cases where one doesn't know what is going on social media. I get messages, dozens sometimes. They've stopped now because I try to respond to each of them, and then the people look a little silly, including close friends of mine who point me in the direction of people. They're just wasting everybody's time. Look, fact of the matter is, we today have a situation where we have, by and large, given our population, given the open borders, given the number of Indians outside, we have by and large been able to contain it. We are in category 2. We should be able to avoid category 3 or delay it as much as possible. There are teams all over the country in smaller places, larger places. The quality of quarantine is something which is being subjected to constant check. As I said, I'm not a concerned minister, but I know Dr. Harshvardhan is personally looking into it. So are the Health Ministry officials and the entire machinery there.
Mr. Puri, as you said, there are 30 international airports in this country, some small, some large. Let me ask you, are you convinced that the smaller airports are also following a uniform protocol? Is there a wide variance between the quality of screening going on at the larger airports and that at the smaller airports? And the nature of the vigil?
100%. 100%. The protocols they follow are exactly the same whether the airport is small or large. The issue in the large airport becomes what happens if a large number of wide-bodied aircraft comes in together. Rajiv, you also have to realize that the measures that we took last week and the measures which we are going to take now, which will be in the public domain, these are designed essentially to discourage non-essential travel. So in other words, if you have essential travel, please come. If you're an Indian citizen, you're welcome. But you try and avoid the non-essential travel. That also gives the system a chance to regroup, to organize itself, and to ensure that there is not... You see, one case getting through is one case too many. That's why I said we take every case seriously. So now if you're not into... If people are... some people will evade, they will not be able to evade at the point of entry. Well, if some people want to leave a quarantine center because, there is bravado, I'm perfectly all right. Look, I think we are dealing... We are also going to come out with measures on that. I think it's under control.
My final question, 2 days ago, I had students, citizens, Indian citizens stranded in Iran and Italy, two of the worst affected countries. You've sent some aircraft to bring in students and citizens. Will more aircraft be sent in to bring in students, citizens from Italy and Iran who are stranded at the moment?
Well, Rajdeep, my answer to that is, first of all, I don't take the call on that, but as a member of the group of ministers, the position we've been adopting so far is whoever, wherever stranded, if they need to be brought back, they will be brought back.
Okay. Hardeep Puri, I appreciate a minister in the group of ministers coming in and telling us what is being done to ensure that the airports remain as vigilant as possible. Thank you very much for joining me at this moment, even as the travel curves now spread with every passing day. The other key issue is of testing. Are we testing enough is a question I want to raise today. Remember, these are the hard figures. India till March 13th had tested 5,900 samples for coronavirus, that is 5 per million of its population. The United States, which started off very slowly, has conducted about 8,554 or 26 per million population. Japan has conducted 9,600 tests, that's 76 per million. The UK, which seems to be focusing on herd immunity as a strategy, till March 12 conducted 29,764 tests or 438 per million. The big success story or the big testing success story, South Korea, which till March 9th had conducted 2.10 lakh tests, which is 4,099 per million population. It's conducting almost 10,000 tests per country and has been relatively successful in controlling corona as a result. The question I want to raise tonight, looking at those numbers, should India be quickly now stepping up testing? More testing or selective testing? The answer, do we have enough testing centers and kits? Herd immunity or social distancing? What's the ideal way forward? I'm joined by Dr. Anil Handu. He's Senior Consultant and Director, Laboratory Medicine, Pathology at Nanavati Super Specialty Hospital. I'm also joined by Dr. Sushmita Roy Chaudhary, Senior Consultant, Pulmonology at Apollo Gleneagles Hospital, Kolkata, and Professor Ramanan Lakshmi Narayanan, Director, Center for Disease Dynamics, Economics and Policy. He teaches infectious disease at Princeton University. Also joined by Naval Kishore Ram, Pune District Collector. Pune, one of the worst hit areas at the moment. Before I come to my three doctors, let me get a quick word from you, Naval Kishore, because there is a feeling that Pune, of all cities, seems to now have registered some of the highest number of cases for coronavirus positive cases. Why has this happened? Is there any trend that you've spotted there in Pune?
So you are asking me, I am Naval Kishore, Collector Pune, right?
Yes, sir. Have you spotted any trend?
Okay.
Why is it that these cases have been high in Pune?
Yes, I am just telling you very clearly on it. We had 2 cases detected on 9th of March. Just in a period of 5-6 days, we can see the rise, like we are now today having 16 positive cases in Pune. See, you can see that basically the number has gone up to 16. The reason is that we have done very good detection actually. Because when we are faced with 2 positive cases, we started finding out who all are the high risk contacts for these 2 persons. And we could easily gather the information only within 12 hours, because this person had just come to India on 1st March, he came to us on 9th March and the test was done. So we just tried to find out what he was doing in these 9 days. So in 9 days, whatever interactions he made with people diverse in many groups, we could find out. So same way just we kept on going. So it's like, it's a kind of a detection process we have accepted here. And whatever cases we are actually faced with now is just because we are following a very, very serious protocol. When a positive case is here, we try to find, actually there are 2 groups, those who are the high risk contacts and those who are the low risk contacts. All these high risk contacts, people are actually contacted within 12 hours. We make calls to them and we also try to find out if any one of them is having any symptom. They are called actually in our hospital immediately. So only because of that, I am telling you, we have tested around 330 samples. And out of 330 samples, we are having the report that's positive cases of 16.
Okay, so out of 330 samples you have tested in Pune, 16 have been found to be positive. The others have been found to be negative, and you're saying this is because of your aggressive testing that you are doing now in Pune and the social distancing that you're carrying on. Professor Ramanan Lakshminarayanan, do you believe that there needs to be, you've been saying there needs to be more aggressive testing. There are other doctors who are saying that that need not necessarily be the only solution. Why are you so insistent that we need to test many more people more aggressively?
So Rajdeep, just as the collector from Pune just said, he tested 300 people and he had 16 positives, which means the positivity rate is about 5%, which is about what you would expect in the population. And it is hard to enforce social distancing for a long period of time unless we're also able to identify those that are infected. So those that are infected need to know that they're infected so that they stop endangering people around them, their own, their own families. In China, the most number of secondary cases were actually in families of those who were positive with coronavirus. So I think that India needs to really ramp up its testing in the way that all the other countries are now starting to do. And even if we get to the Thai level, which is about 75 to 100 tests per million population, we will be able to quickly get to the people who are actually infected. And I'd like to just get to the earlier point about which stage of the epidemic we're in right now. I am not sure that we have the evidence to say that we don't have community spread of coronavirus. Why? Because we've not looked in the community. So if you only look for people wearing a black t-shirt and say, are you tested for coronavirus and then are you positive, and that's all the positives you get, then you might incorrectly think that only people wearing black t-shirts have coronavirus.
But who takes the initiative?
We never tested anyone not wearing a black t-shirt.
But Professor,
so
who takes that initiative to?
I think it's got to have to be.
Who takes the initiative? Is it the medical community? Is it government? Is it individuals? Is it citizens who experience even the slightest symptoms who immediately go and get themselves tested? Because there could then be hordes of people who will want to be tested outside hospitals.
So there are actually a lot of people who show up with symptoms at places like RML or Safdarjung in Delhi to get tested. And I would say that whoever shows symptoms, cough, difficulty breathing and a low-grade fever, that we should be testing all of these folks. Maybe it's harder to do what South Korea did, but the government is saying that we have 100,000 tests that are available. Why are we sitting on these tests? Why don't we start doing 10,000 tests a day, 15,000 tests a day, and really expand our testing program to identify those who might be positive? Today we're doing something closer to about 1,000 to about 1,200 tests based on the reports we're seeing. And I think that is far too little for a country the size of India.
Dr. Sushmita Roy Chaudhary, Senior Consultant Pulmonology at Apollo Gleneagles Hospital, do you believe that we have the capacity to step up this testing over the next 1 week, the number of tests that we carry on?
Well, from what I'm aware, that we do have the capacity, but I also believe that I think it should be used for people who really need it rather than mindlessly. India is a different country from South Korea, and I personally do believe a little bit in herd immunity, and I think people who really need testing should have it, and that is going to involve a multi-pronged effort, A, from the government, B, from the medical community, and also creating community volunteers who will identify symptoms and bring them to the concerned doctors, and these people should be directed to the state or the government identified places where these investigations are done in order to identify and then test them rather than mindlessly test everybody.
You mentioned herd immunity. Explain this concept to me. The British were, the United Kingdom government was talking of it, but they also have now gone back to social distancing. The Indian government is focusing on social distancing, a virtual lockdown in several of our cities today. Do you believe herd immunity is possible in a country of the size of India? What is herd immunity for our viewers in any case?
First of all, so I'll just tell you what herd immunity means is, in our country when children had chicken pox, our parents would just lock us inside the house and not let us go and meet our friends. Whereas in the UK or other countries like that, when children have chicken pox, there are chicken pox parties. And why do they have the parties? Because it's caused by a virus. And the reason you get the infection is because you have no immunity against it. And when you go and mix with people and get the virus inside, you develop antibodies, which basically means it's not that you won't have the disease, but your body develops a little bit of immunity to fight it.
Right.
And you have it early on rather than later on without any immunity to it. So with regards to this virus particularly, most public health authorities would say that herd immunity doesn't exist. But I think it's going to be a retrospective thing to look at. I would think that this is a viral infection, and it has been shown that less than 2% people have very severe disease in the elderly people with comorbidities, whereas the younger people, even children, have very mild disease. So therefore, social distancing is absolutely important. Precautions are absolutely important. But again, I think, screening mindlessly and treating, I'm not sure when this goes to stage 3, how much National Institute of Virology Pune is going to be able to handle if all these positive tests reach them.
Okay, so it's basically that stage 3 that we have to at the moment at least delay if we can't prevent it. Dr. Anil Handu, where do you stand, Dr. Handu, on this? Do you believe that that we need to step up testing, or do you believe that that would spread an element of panic?
So I would agree with the concept that the moment you're going to step up testing, you're going to increase the panic amongst the public, number one. Number two, dealing with the testing part of it can become a challenge also, because it's not only getting the test done from a particular laboratory, it's also about collecting the sample. And as we have seen with H1N1, there has been a lot of scare in getting the sample out itself, number one. Number two, the number of testing labs which are available across the country. Even today, with the government's intervention, we still have a lot to do in that direction. The test usually takes about 5 to 7 days, even today, for us to get the results out. So unless and until the infrastructure is created where a lot of other labs get into the picture and are able to give us this kind of a facility, I don't think testing will really make a huge difference. Well, it should be available specifically to the people, who are actually symptomatic, and for them the testing should be made available for sure. As far as the herd immunity part of it is concerned, I have my doubts about herd immunity, because this is more of a vaccination concept, and herd immunity will take time to come in. So therefore, at this point of time, one should probably look more in terms of social distancing, having a possibility of screening the people as has been rightly being done already, and in addition to that, having testing labs which are available to everybody so that it's easier for everyone to get their testings done.
Professor Lakshmi Narayan, you've heard two doctors saying that, the fear of the testing can at times become mindless, and we possibly don't even have the infrastructure that South Korea has to do these quick random tests that they seem to be doing at the moment. Given all that, do you still maintain that we need to step up this testing to 10,000 a day?
Yeah, so let me explain herd immunity for just a second, because, just to make sure the viewers have it right. Herd immunity, as Dr. Handu said, is really, you don't need to vaccinate 100% of the population to prevent a disease, because in many cases you vaccinate 80% or 85%, that's sufficient, because then any infected case would have difficulty finding a susceptible person to infect. That is really what the concept of herd immunity is. I would not advise a chickenpox party kind of an approach to coronavirus. In fact, I don't know any infectious disease person who would, because with a mortality rate which is 16% amongst the elderly population, the last thing we want to do is to unleash this virus on the population and just say whoever survives survives, and if you don't make it, then you don't make it. That's really what the UK is betting on, and they're counting on a lot of things which are unknown right now, but it may end up quite badly, in that particular situation. It's definitely not where India ought to be going. On the testing part, I did not say that everyone who's lined up for a test ought to get a test. It should be people who are symptomatic, who are presenting with symptoms, but today the guidelines are that they should have had either exposure to someone who's come from abroad with coronavirus, or they should have traveled abroad themselves. Now that assumes that we don't have secondary transmission in the community right now. And today ICMR has said that they will do 1,000 additional tests over the course of a week amongst asymptomatics in the general population to see if they would have coronavirus. Now, I'm not sure that's entirely helpful either, because amongst asymptomatics, they probably don't have the viral load that you would pick up a positive test with. I think there are hundreds of people who are lining up right now, at testing centers, who are being turned away because they did not travel abroad or were not exposed to someone who came from abroad. I think we have a ready population that's presenting itself. That's not an insurmountable target for the government to, or with the private sector allowed to really go out and test. And I think that what's happening in Pune is really, a beacon for where we should be. What the collector in Pune is doing is exactly what, the districts should be doing. Contact trace, but certainly test very aggressively, because you'll find that 5% of those tests will be positive cases, and then we have a chance of controlling.
Dr. Sushmita Roy Chaudhary, very quickly, is that the rule that hospitals have generally made, that you will test only those who've come from abroad, that you will not test within the community at the moment?
So far, what we've been told is people who have definitely come from an affected country or have been in contact with somebody who definitely has symptoms are the ones that we have to test. But also, if people are coming in just from the community with viral symptoms, especially in a place like West Bengal, at the moment we have more other viral infections in H1N1 that are, they present the same way. So at the moment, only those who are coming from highly affected countries and the ones that have been definitely in contact with the definite corona affected person are the ones that we are being allowed to send to the state place for testing.
Dr. Handu, is that the rule generally now being followed?
Yes, at this point of time, that is the rule. It's only the people who are exposed or who are at the high risk of having this disease are the ones which are being tested. And the test is not open to everyone as of now. And even the people who are suspecting themselves to have gone to parties where perhaps they might have gotten exposed, even to them it's not allowed to just go ahead and go again get a test done. You are able to get the test done only and only if you are symptomatic and if you have had specific contact history. That's how it is currently.
Okay, let's leave it there. I think we've got a sense of two sides of the story, some believing that you need more control tests, others believing that you really need to now ramp up the testing. Remember, that's really what South Korea has done so successfully. Taiwan, another successful example. On the other side of the spectrum, the United States, which has spectacularly failed in that regard. I appreciate all of you joining me here on the news today.
Hi everyone, Preeti Chaudhary here. Hope you like this video. For latest news and analysis, like and subscribe to the India Today YouTube channel. And don't forget to press the bell icon to stay updated. Thank you for watching.